Welcome to the Health and Healing Podcast with me, Sophia, where I talk all things to do with health and healing, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I share insights from personal stories, client wins, chats with other practitioners, and offer nourishing support for those navigating the healing path. Now, if you are wanting to feel healthier, more at home in your body, and in love with your life, then you are in the right place, my love. Enjoy the episode. Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Health and Healing Podcast. I am excited to be here today and talking about a very interesting topic all around health and how to navigate the health path and chronic illness and things like that. Something that I personally experienced myself and found that wasn't really discussed at the time. But before we dive right in, I invite you to get settled. You might like to sit down with a journal and pen, or you're more than welcome to listen to this on the go while you're doing bits and bobs in your life. I'm here with a beautiful cup of tea, and yeah, let's dive in. So today's topic, I'm also joined with, actually, before I dive in, I'm actually joined, if you're watching the video, you'll see I have a beautiful Leo, a cat sitting in the background. It's the neighbor's cat, and he just sometimes likes to spend some time with me. So he will be enjoying the episode alongside you. So if you hear any sounds, or if I have to get up in the middle of the episode and let him outside, you might just notice a few strange sounds if you're listening to the audio. But yeah, I really want to dive into this topic. It's so big, it's so important, and it is so under-discussed. So the whole idea around this topic is you are experiencing challenges in your body. You're experiencing health challenges, you're experiencing symptoms, and you know something feels off. You know there's something has changed, it's not quite right. Your body is letting you know that it needs support, it needs help, and you just know. And then you go to doctors, or you go to practitioners, or you talk to family, you talk to loved ones, close ones to you, and they don't get it. They do not hear you. They do not receive the message. Maybe your blood work comes back normal. Your functional testing comes back normal. And yet you do not feel like everything is normal. You do not feel fine. You feel unwell. You feel like your body is on high alert. There are all these symptoms, all these challenges, and yet no one seems to get it. No one seems to get how big, how severe, how challenging this is for you right now. Boy, have I been there. When I was first going through the first initiations of my health challenges with pain and fatigue, digestive issues, hormonal issues, kind of rapid weight gain, depression, and I had my blood tests, and it was like, oh yeah, everything's okay, just make sure you eat healthy and exercise. And my family didn't quite understand it at the time, and they were just, I felt so isolated and so alone, and so like, is there something wrong with me? Am I crazy? Is it all in my head? And so it's really important for you to know, if this is you right now, if you're feeling really alone, if you're feeling really isolated, you're feeling like people just aren't getting it, and there's a lot of emotion there. It might be anger, frustration. You might be feeling really uncomfortable and fearful in your own body. The first thing to really note is this experience you're having is very real. The relationship you're having to your body right now is very real. And when people around you, when it feels like you're being dismissed, and it can feel like you're making it up, but you're not. It is very, very real. So I just want to take a moment to fully acknowledge you. in what you're experiencing, in the challenges you are facing right now. You are not making it up. It is not all in your head. You are experiencing very real, very physical challenges that can be very consuming. In saying this feeling of when others cannot hear you and cannot validate your experience, and it feels like there's something wrong with you, and you feel like there's something wrong with you, it's important to know that there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. Your body is going through a transition. You're experiencing symptoms. You're experiencing changes. But there is nothing inherently wrong with you as a person, as a soul, as a being, as a living creature. It can just sometimes feel like there's all these kinds of things that are wrong with us, and we're alone in it and no one gets it. And these expressions that come to the surface, the symptoms that come to the surface, they can be your body signaling some kind of imbalance. Something's not quite right here. Something doesn't feel quite right. And it's your body asking for attention. It's its way of communicating to you of what it needs. And if you can't decipher that, if you don't understand that, if you've lived a life of disconnect from your body, which is often how many of us are raised and brought up, and it's just a byproduct of the society we live in many ways, then you will need to take a bit of time to learn how to understand those messages. You might not get it straight away, and that's okay. But it is your body asking for attention, and part of the healing path, part of that discovery of health, is learning to reconnect to your body, to its language, to what it is wanting you to realize and step into. And so with that, then, there are things that you can do to improve your health. And that is where that piece of taking self-responsibility is so powerful and so important. And in the beginning, when you're in that phase where it feels like no one gets it, people are telling me I'm crazy, or at least that's what it feels like, then it can feel like you're a bit helpless, or it can feel like there's nothing you can do because there's no validity to it, or it feels like there's no validity to it because you're relying on external validation of your experience. But it can take time for you to really come to understand what you're experiencing and how to communicate what you're experiencing so that you can get the support and the help that you need on your journey. And I also want to acknowledge when you are faced with that situation where you're asking for help, there may be an element of desperation, like you just don't know what to do. And I'm talking kind of those symptoms related to chronic health conditions. So for a lot of women, you've got the menstrual challenges, endometriosis, which is often not diagnosed very well. You've got PCOS, you've got just PMS and heavy menstrual cycles, those kinds of things. And then there's the chronic pain, the autoimmune conditions, the immune system challenges, and all these not silent conditions, but conditions that often take quite a long time to be recognized medically. That is when it can feel really frustrating. When you've, for months or for years, been feeling like you're fighting an uphill battle, and you're just trying to get heard and you're not being heard. And what I've learned is that people who have not experienced it, or who are not deeply attuned will not be able to hear you. They will not be able to receive you. This can be practitioners, this can be doctors, this can also be friends and family. If they have not lived through that, whether in their own bodies or with someone else extremely close to them, and they've not been through that initiation, there's no way for them to recognize your situation. They cannot connect to it. And the other piece is, some people don't have to experience it personally. They can still be deeply attuned. I have found that that is quite a rare thing to come across, although that quality of deep attunement and connecting to people in a really authentic way is becoming more and more common, and it's a really beautiful thing to see shift in society. So then your responsibility, if you find yourself constantly being met with feeling dismissed, feeling like you're not being heard, you're not getting your needs met, those kinds of things, your responsibility is to discern who you want to share your experience with. Particularly in the beginning phases, when you feel vulnerable and you go into a situation, it could be a social setting, it could be a practitioner's office, you go into a situation, you're feeling vulnerable because your body is like so challenged right now, and you feel afraid with that, you feel like you're not at home, you don't know what's real and what's not. And so when you're vulnerable, it can be the case where you might need to step back from certain triggers. And if there are people in your life that keep bringing up these triggers, these emotional triggers, and you just don't have the capacity to hold that right now, so it can be beneficial to just step back and to stop sharing with those people. Now, it's challenging because there's a part of you that really wants to. You want to ask for help. You want to talk to the people close to you. But the reality is they may not get it. You might leave those interactions feeling worse. And that is then a trigger for your body. Chances are your symptoms may even flare up. And that is a reality. That is a truth that can happen. And it's really important to acknowledge that. You can be as angry as you like. You can want to blame them as much as you like. But the truth is, you can't force them to get it. You can't make it click for them. All you can do is really take care of your well-being and do what it takes to look after your needs and take responsibility for yourself. And this also does point to limitations in the healthcare system. It is great for many things, but it is not perfect. And practitioners are human beings. They don't know everything. And in a perfect world, right, we might wish and hope that they could know everything, but the truth is they don't. And there's a lot of conditions coming to the surface that some practitioners aren't trained in. They don't really understand. So how could they connect with you? How could they really understand your experience? And sometimes as well, that with the training, they may not have that ability to attune to you. And so it's important to acknowledge that, the healthcare system has its limitations. It doesn't mean it can't be useful, because it definitely can be. But it's knowing what to use it for. And I think that might be another topic I dive into in another episode. But what it brings it back to is healing is a collaboration. It's a collaborative experience. And it's finding your people that support you in that. And that also means you need to show up to the party. You need to take initiative. You need to take self-responsibility for the part you're playing in your experience. It's not everyone else's fault. There may be elements where things can be traced back to childhood traumas. You may have been mistreated by a practitioner, a person in your life. There are those elements. It's important to acknowledge those too. But those things have happened. And so what can you then do for yourself? And tea break first, actually. Then I'll move on to my next point. Okay. So, when it comes to those first moments where you feel yourself needing to take some time for yourself, you end up perhaps not sharing your experience and your story with as many people because you're navigating who you can trust with this information. There may be a time where you get quite grounded in your body, you get comfortable in your experience. In a sense, you get more understanding as to what you're experiencing, and you feel more attuned to your own body, a little bit less crazy, like you're not all making it up. You now know you're not making it all up in your head. There may come a point where you can start to communicate to these same people that you once couldn't. You may start to be able to communicate to them your experience. But because you've grounded within yourself, you've become more familiar with your experience, and you've educated yourself a bit more, you've learned a bit more. You may be able to communicate that in a clearer way, and you may also be less attached to how they feel and what they think about your experience. When you are vulnerable, sometimes we can be really dependent on other people's validation of our experience. But when you become more grounded within yourself, that is less needed, and so you feel much less vulnerable, and those interactions may actually be then more appropriate for you. So it's really important to know that trust and honor where you are in your journey, and it doesn't necessarily look like anyone else's. But if you feel that call within yourself to make a change, to change your social circle, to change your practitioners, to spend some more time alone, you have every right to do that. Like, this is your life, this is your healing path, and you don't need someone else's permission to do that. I understand when situations can get complicated with close relationships, parenting, partnerships and things like that. I do understand those layers. There can be complex layers. And so for you, taking from that what resonates, taking from that what you can, how can you apply that concept to your life? It's not necessarily about up and leaving everything and completely running away from your life. It can be micro changes and shifts for yourself for a given period. So that is kind of a rundown of the layers to that experience when you are in the middle of feeling alienated and isolated and alone because you're experiencing these things that no one around you seems to get. And so I want to break down what exactly you can do. What exactly you can do for yourself in those moments. If you feel like you're not getting your needs met, the practitioners currently aren't helping you in the way you feel you need, what can you do in those moments, right? Because maybe one day you will find the practitioner that really resonates with you, but there might be a little bit of time in between now and then. And so how do you live during that time? How do you approach your life during that time? What do you do? Do you run around panicked and overwhelmed and afraid of your own body, completely joyless and disconnected? Or is there a way to still feel like you're taking steps forward and still feel like you're honoring your body and still feel like you can connect to the joy of living in life, even in the midst of this challenge? So the things you can do, I've already covered a little bit of it, but I'm going to run through it all, and I've made bullet points, so I want to articulate it in a way that is clear, and so I'll use my little bullet points and my little notes here to support me in doing that. The first thing is, like I mentioned, first you got to acknowledge your experience. It is incredibly real. It is happening. You're not crazy. Honor and acknowledge your experience in your body. And you can even sit with yourself in a practice. You can even do this right now while you're listening to this. You just take a moment. You connect into your body to the extent that feels accessible to you. And you notice, you reassure yourself of what you're experiencing right now in your body. This is real. This is happening. You just listen and you acknowledge. You don't need to try and change anything. And you might feel this wave of relief. Your shoulders can relax. It's real, it's okay, it's happening. But you're still here today. And it can change. And so I think really giving yourself that time to let that sink in is so important. Sometimes when we're in the middle of these health crises and these challenges, we can run around like a headless chicken, so afraid, just trying to get answers. We don't actually take the time to sit and be with what is right now. And that is really the start to some big changes. So that's the first point, knowing that it is valid, knowing that it is real, and you have the right to feel the way you feel. And then the second point is to get really clear on what it is you're feeling. So get acquainted to the sensations in your body. Get acquainted to how it interacts with your emotional system. Do you feel defensiveness when you have a conversation about it with someone? Do you feel upset, or do you feel like your body shuts down and closes? Are you actually able to clearly articulate the sensations you're experiencing, the fears and worries you have, the emotions that arise in your body when you feel these sensations? Because the way in which we deliver that kind of information when we are asking for help, when we are seeking support, is so important. And now a really attuned practitioner will be able to read between the lines and pick up on your energy and understand the meaning behind what you're saying, even if it isn't fully clear, even if you're in that space where you can't fully articulate. So I do acknowledge that. In saying this practice can be really helpful for yourself as well. You can feel much more empowered, and it can also help with connecting to friends and family on that path when you have more clarity for yourself, more understanding for your own experience. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is setting some really clear boundaries. Particularly with those people where you're feeling dismissed, where you're feeling the anger, the frustration, where you're feeling unheard. Setting some boundaries. And that is not necessarily a practice of being all up in someone's face. It's a practice for within. Setting some boundaries for you. Where are you overgiving? Where are you sharing information that you actually don't yet feel comfortable sharing? Where are you not getting your needs met? And knowing that you don't have to tell everyone. This is not everyone's going to be a part of your journey on this level, and that's okay. That's okay. In setting boundaries, you can then release attachment to wanting someone else to be a certain way, to needing someone else to be a certain way. And in this practice of implementing and honoring boundaries, you can allow yourself to be vulnerable first and foremost with yourself. And you get to then decide who you choose into your inner circle, who you choose to be outwardly vulnerable with, who you feel safe with. Because a big part of healing any chronic health condition is feeling safe within yourself and within your environment and within the people in your circle. And so that again comes back to your responsibility to starting with inner safety and getting clear on how you would like to feel with the people in your space. And if they are leaving you, if you leave those interactions feeling unsafe, unmet, unheard, you don't have to keep showing up there. You don't. I learned that one for myself. I felt pressures and expectations to show up for people in my life. Again, I'm going to acknowledge there are layers of complexity here when it comes to children and certain family. I understand that. So, yeah, I found when I was going through my health challenges, I felt there were times I really pulled back from certain people in my life, and I don't think it made me the favorite. I don't think it made me the most likable character and person. In saying that, I was in such a state that I knew I needed to take care of my health and my well-being. And if that means someone's not happy with me because I'm no longer people-pleasing, I'm no longer shape-shifting and contorting myself to make someone else happy, then I'm okay with that. And that is a tough pill to swallow when, you know, you're raised and comfortable in your people-pleasing ways. It's really hard to then observe how relationships change in your life when you begin to no longer play out those same behaviors. But it is also incredibly empowering. And sometimes we go through a phase sometimes, not all the time, where we can be a little bit blunt. We can be a little bit direct. And now this is something that's definitely happened for me. I've always been quite honest and authentic and open and to the point. That is a trait of mine. I'm incredibly honest, and sometimes I say more than needs to be said, let's put it that way, and I'm still learning that balance. That is part of my journey. And so in those phases when I was learning boundaries, when it came to taking care of my health and my well-being, I could sometimes be a little bit direct with some people, and I felt that was part of me reclaiming my fire, reclaiming my anger. And I wasn't necessarily directing anger at people, like letting my anger out on people, but I would claim that I'm angry. I remember saying multiple times in situations, particularly with people that were really close to me and loyal, that I would be angry. I would claim that I'm feeling angry, and I'd be loud and I'd express it. It's not necessarily the most enjoyable thing to be around. But it was so empowering after having years of feeling really repressed emotionally and not having that outlet. And so it's been a journey, and now I know for myself too, I reclaim my anger for myself. I have my own practices where I move my body, really somatic practices. I work with my breath, I vocalize, and I often do this alone. Now in my own space, because I don't need to have witnesses. In saying it can be really powerful if you're in a relationship, say if you're in a partnership or even with friendships, to connect on that level, to be witnessed in your expression. But then again, you need to be really sure that you feel safe with that person to be able to hold your full expression. So there are layers to that, and I don't want to get too deep into it because it's multifaceted, and you also want to feel like your expression of emotion is pure. It's not directed at someone. It's not, you don't get a token to just lash out at someone. You have to claim your emotions. And I actually recently made a post on this on my social media, on my Instagram, particularly around for women, but we need to claim our emotions. They are our emotions. Yes, someone might have triggered it in our environment, but they are still running through our body. We are still experiencing our emotions. And so that's really important when it comes to empowering yourself and setting boundaries. You also need to know the boundaries within yourself. So a few layers to that piece. You're also welcome to connect with me on social media and message me questions if you listen to these podcasts and you end up having questions. Email too, if that works. And so another point, what else you can do, point number, I think we're on number 4, is start to research options. If you're feeling like you're not getting your needs met with the medical system, with the practitioners you're currently seeing, you have every right to do your own research. You have every right to do your own research. And there is so much information out there these days. Now, it's important to be really discerning as to what you let in. And this is where I'm going to talk about the nuance of this, is if you research from an empowered place, that's really different from researching and ending up overwhelmed and panicked. Now, I'm speaking from experience here. I have had those late nights. It's 2 a.m. I'm still scrolling on my phone, researching a particular symptom I have, worrying about how it's the end of the world and how my body is breaking and nothing's going the way I need and no one seems to be able to help me. That is not helpful. That is not helpful for you. You are stressing your body, and chronic symptoms are often connected to chronic stress in the body. And so you're actually perpetuating the cycle. So you need to give yourself some boundaries. Comes back to boundaries. You need to give yourself some guidelines of what is appropriate to the extent of how much you can research before you end up down that rabbit hole. You don't need to end up down that rabbit hole. That's where practitioners come in. That's where you ask for trusted support, and I'll talk about that soon. So when you're doing your research, you need to catch yourself out when you're starting to feel more afraid, more panicked, more uncomfortable in your body, more like it's not actually helping you anymore. It's just stressing you out. Put a boundary in place and recognize that you need to do something different now. You need to shift your attention. You need to shift your focus. You need to come back into your body, back into the reality of your life right now. Nature around you, the 4 walls of the room you're in, and ground in. So yes, being discerning when it comes to how much you choose to research and setting those boundaries so that you're not getting yourself into a panicked and overwhelmed state. And also, I mentioned there as well, coming to connect with and work with a trusted practitioner. So it's really helpful. There's only so much research you can do. Sometimes it comes into practice. It comes into experience and experiencing. And there's only so much we can guide ourselves through that. And this is where working with a trusted practitioner, and it might take a bit of time for you to find who that is for you, and over time it might change as well. But it can be so helpful to supporting you on that healing path where you feel safe and when you feel like you're being met in that relationship with a practitioner. And so I wanted to share some kind of key points that I think are important when working with a practitioner around who to choose. And these are just some guidelines. You can write them down. You might have some to add to the list for yourself, specific to your situation, your circumstance. But the first thing that I find is so important is someone and somewhere where you feel really safe and heard. Now I've had situations where I have been to highly trained, they've got all the papers, highly trained practitioners, and I have left the room in tears. My body did not feel safe. And I felt panicked and afraid of my own body. Probably not the right practitioner for me. Even if they have all the qualifications, if they cannot hold that space that feels safe for you, your body cannot heal. It cannot heal if it does not feel safe, first and foremost. So really choosing a practitioner where you leave feeling, okay, I'm a little bit calmer, I'm a little bit more settled, I have a bit more clarity. And now maybe there are elements to working with this practitioner that are uncomfortable, because deep healing work isn't always comfortable. Let's be honest here, let's be real. Sometimes it is uncomfortable. But you can still feel an element of safety within that discomfort, where you feel trusting in yourself and trusting of the person you're with. There's a big difference there between panic and stress and unsafety, as opposed to, or in contrast with, discomfort. So I teach yoga as well in my life and in my days and in my community, and one of the elements to yoga with postures and shapes and meditations and breathing is oftentimes there is an element of discomfort. It's not always comfortable to be in some of those shapes and to hold some of those shapes. It's not always comfortable to meditate and be with yourself, be present with yourself. But you meet yourself in that discomfort. You move through that discomfort and you leave feeling better. That's the difference. So I think for practitioners as well, that quality of feeling safe and heard is so, so important, no matter how many qualifications they have. And it's the same with friends and family. Leave feeling safe and heard. And acknowledging that we sometimes do get a little bit triggered, we sometimes do feel uncomfortable. Okay, number 2, another aspect to look into when choosing a practitioner is checking their qualifications. I think that's always helpful. It's just, have they actually done some training? Have they actually done some legitimate training that resonates with you? And do they have personal experience in what you are experiencing? Have they themselves moved through it? Do they know what it feels like to be where you are today? Or at least can attune to that feeling, that sensation? And if they haven't done that, had that personal experience, perhaps they've worked with people who have for a long, long time, or are well versed in that area of health and well-being. I think that's important. I think the personal experience piece is so important, and that can help the attunement in terms of a practitioner being able to connect with you and you being able to connect to the practitioner. We're in this place in the world where human connection is so important, more important than ever. And you want to feel like you can connect to the person you're sitting in front of. You want to feel like they get it, they've been there, they moved through it. That's incredible. I've just seen evidence that this person has done what I am wanting to do. They have that roadmap. And any good practitioner will also recognize that no two journeys are exactly the same. If they just try to tell you that you need to do exactly what I did, I would see that as, for me, a red flag. In the sense that people are unique and there are potential crossovers of what might resonate within you, but it might not be exactly the same. And so there's got to be ability to be flexible and to move with whoever that practitioner is sitting in front of, and move with what they are showing up with. Okay, another point is you don't really want to be working with someone who is, you feel like you're pressured to keep buying more, whether it's more services or more product. I understand that, because I work with people myself, so I understand that, you know, you're running a business and you've got to be able to put food on the table. I understand that piece. As a practitioner and as a business owner and as someone who works in this field, I understand that side of things. But I also understand that manipulating someone to work with you and instilling fear into them to work with you is, I don't think is appropriate, and I don't think is ethical. And so as a client or as someone who is looking for a practitioner, if you feel that sense that they're kind of trying to push you into buying more or into spending more on products, and you've actually, as well as if you've raised that concern that it might not be in alignment and they still kind of weave it in, that might not resonate with you. That might not resonate with you. And so that's for you to decide for yourself. You might still feel really safe and like you're really seeing good results with this person, and that's okay. But for you, if you sit with that and just tune in and see what feels right, see what doesn't, are you feeling pressured? Are you feeling under pressure? Like, if you don't do this, if you don't pay for this thing, it's gonna derail all your progress. Because that's not the case. My approach to working with people is always, I want you to leave my courses and the work that I offer feeling like you have a new set of tools and a skill set and a new level of attunement to your own body and life and your own health, where you don't need my services in the same way you may have once needed them, because you've learned and you've been able to embody it. That's my job. If I keep trying to lure you back in for more, then I haven't done my job. And that, as a practitioner, that doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel very good at all. So I really want you to leave feeling empowered. I really want you to leave feeling like you've got this. And as someone who is continuously educating myself and continuously growing in the area that I work in when it comes to health and energy and yoga and all those things, yes, my offerings will evolve and I'll have new things to offer, new things to learn. And I will suggest to people, if I feel like it's in alignment with where they're at on their path, I will suggest to people, I will put it out there. I will share what I'm doing. But my intention is never to put pressure on someone and say, you need to do this, otherwise, or insinuate that otherwise you are not healing or you are not on the right path. That is for you to decide, and I fully acknowledge that. So that's my piece on that. And the final point of choosing a practitioner is, do you feel a deep inner yes? This is not about all the logical stuff here. This isn't about making a positives and negative chart of all the reasons why you should work with this person, all the reasons why you shouldn't. This is about what your body says. Does your body say yes? Does it feel in alignment? Now, I have worked with multiple coaches over the years. I've worked with different practitioners. I've done different studies. And I, particularly when it comes to my studies, my education, and the coaches I've worked with, in the end, it's usually not a logical decision. It usually comes back to, I feel a full body pull towards working with this person or these people or this institution. And it's never been a wrong decision. I'll say that for myself. It's never been a wrong decision when I've trusted that gut calling. And sometimes the evidence hasn't been there. Like financially, it's been a stretch for me at times. I'm like, how am I going to do this? I don't know. But I commit because I really deeply trust in myself, and I trust in that calling. I trust in that soul calling and that connection, that I'm being called to connect with this person, to connect with this form of education and this study. And I trust that, and it has never led me wrong. And that it's just such a beautiful and powerful practice to be able to do that for yourself, because then you're taking full responsibility as well for your life, and you're showing up for yourself even when it's hard. Because don't get me wrong, when I've made those decisions, I've had the little niggly voice of like, you can't do this, this is not going to work. And I felt so afraid at times of like, there's this element of fear. Now I make sure I sit with that fear as well, because I need to still feel safe in my body in that decision. But the fear can still be there because it is scary. It's a change. It's something different. It's uncomfortable, right? Coming back to that piece of discomfort. It's uncomfortable. But that call, that deep inner knowing, it moves through my whole body, is stronger, it's clearer, it's louder, it's more important than the fear. I will overcome that fear. I will move through that as I work with this person, as I do this education, this study. My body will acclimate. I will adjust. It's okay. I know that. I've been through it enough times to know that. So trusting that inner yes, trusting that inner pull, and also trusting the inner no. When you think logically, yes, this is the right person, but my body is saying no. Trust that no. So those are the kind of my outlines in terms of my guidelines for how I work with people. If I'm choosing a practitioner, if I'm choosing someone, a coach, or if I'm choosing my next line of study, that is how I work to gain that clarity for myself. And so far, hasn't led me wrong. So the next point in terms of what you can do on your healing path, what you can do when you're feeling dismissed, when you're feeling unheard, you're feeling vulnerable, is to recognize that you don't need to rush right now. You don't need to rush. You don't need to get to the end of this journey. Meet yourself exactly where you are right now. You don't need to force the outcome, the timeline, and instead prioritize decisions that come from that place of calm, that full body yes, that feeling of inner safety. When you are really unsettled and panicked and overwhelmed and feeling unsafe in your body, and you make decisions from that place, that is when the decision might end up not feeling supportive. Now, I have a story around this for myself. I had an instance where I ended up making a fear-based decision, and it has impacted my life in ways that have been incredibly challenging. So years ago, I'm not sure how many years, I want to say around 4, I went to the dentist. I hadn't been to the dentist in a long time. Never had any issues with my teeth, no holes, nothing. She's been taking care of her mouth, right? And I went to the dentist, and I was having, my wisdom teeth were coming through, the bottom ones but partially erupted. And I went to the dentist because I noticed that there was a little crack in one of my bottom teeth, and my teeth were starting to overlap at the bottom. And I was like, oh no, I don't think this should happen. And so I went to the dentist, and I talked to the dentist, and he said that the crack was all sealed, so it was like there's no damp, like it's not an alarming thing. It's okay. But he told me that I needed to get all my wisdom teeth taken out. I had no issues, no holes, no pains. And he said that there wasn't like enough space in the bottom, and that it was pushing the teeth forward. And I left that dentist appointment feeling unsafe. I was feeling before that so trusting in my body. I was like, yeah, my teeth are great. I feel good. I'm going to have all my wisdom teeth. I don't need to worry about this. I'm good. I'm so happy with the situation that I'm in. I left feeling in doubt. I was worried. I was like, something's wrong. I've got to get my teeth pulled out. I don't want to have my teeth pulled out. And so I did some research. I did some rabbit hole research, okay? We talked about the rabbit hole. It was not helpful. Some of it was, some of it was, some of it was not. I did not have clear enough boundaries at the time. You learn through living. And long story short, I ended up getting 2 of the teeth pulled out. I had my bottom 2 done because I was aware of certain things. The top ones seemed fine. I had so much space. They were coming through fully, all of that. Even though the dentist said some of the things he said were incorrect, let's put it that way, and they proved to be wrong later down the line. So I had the bottom 2 ones taken out, and I made that decision from a place, it was not a full body yes. It was a place of, I was afraid of my own body. Something is wrong. I need to have this done because someone else told me to. That's where it came from. I ended up going into shock, low grade. I left that extraction appointment incredibly shaken up. I was not in a good space. I was not in a good space at all. A month later, I ended up with lockjaw, as in lockjaw is to do with like the muscles, and I couldn't open my mouth, and I was in excruciating pain down the sides of my jaw. And I was having pain in my jaw, deep in the spaces. I was, everything itself surfacely healed really well. But I was experiencing nightmares. I was experiencing all kinds of symptoms. It turned out I had a piece of metal from one of the medical instruments lodged in my jaw. I think it's still there. And some fragment of tooth left on the other side. And my jaw was injured. Every time I opened my jaw, it would click. It was injured. And that is not all that happened. There was a mold. I won't go into all the details because it's veering off the point of that I want to make here. But over the coming years, more and more issues have come into place. I've had more challenges with my teeth than ever. My whole mouth, my whole jaw, my whole everything has been off. And I've been working with it and navigating it, and I've had to find deep safety in my body and trusting my body. And I still have flare-ups of jaw pain that brings an element of panic back into my body, because I experienced a trauma and it was really, really challenging, and I fully acknowledge myself in that, and I'm still healing from that. And that was around 4 years ago now, or maybe even over 4 years ago. So the point of that story is not to scare you into not getting your wisdom teeth extracted or anything like that. For some people, that decision is a full body yes. And most people have no issues. They're completely fine. It was not a full body yes for me. And I did have challenges. And I knew deep down it was not the right call at that time, at that moment in time. And so that is where I've learned for myself, and I really support others in connecting to this within themselves, is that sometimes the practitioner you see will get it wrong. Some of the things the dentist said, he got wrong. That is the truth. Mistakes were made. Injuries were had. And that's okay. I don't agree with some of the things. I am much more well researched and have much clearer boundaries now when I work with practitioners. But the truth is, everyone's human, and they can only go from their experience and their knowledge. And so we have then the responsibility for ourselves to take care of ourselves. And sometimes you might not be liked by a practitioner. That's okay. They don't have to like you. You're paying them. You're paying them for a service, and you get to lead the direction you want that to go in terms of what it is you would like to receive. And so I really, really advocate for people to make decisions from a place of deep knowing and trust, deep calm. And that'll lead you on a path that feels more healing, more supportive. Don't get me wrong, part of me does not regret the situation, the choices I made for my teeth, because that has initiated me into embodying this learning. That is my journey. That is what I needed to experience. In saying that, I'm not doing it again. I don't want to go through that again, please and thank you. Okay, let's move through this list. This is becoming a very long episode. What else you can do? Build trust with your intuition. I've talked about this already. What feels true? What feels fearful? What feels safe? What feels unsafe? And when you work with me, I have a library of meditations that can bring you into this practice of what is safety, what is not safety. So I offer that in my courses and in my one-on-ones and things like that. And then also start simple. Start simple. Chances are you don't need a comprehensive, crazy, overwhelming protocol that costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, or sometimes you just need to start simple. You just need to start simple. And it's little changes throughout your day, little lifestyle changes that feel accessible to you. Meet yourself where you're at. And then from there you can maybe grow. You can maybe step into these more comprehensive protocols and practices and experiences. But you don't want to overwhelm yourself, because again, chronic illness often tied to chronic stress. So it's finding that balance of taking action while also honoring your peace and your calm. So those are the things you can do. I've kind of outlined them as well, and I will put everything I talked about in this podcast into a Substack. So I've recently started a Substack as well, where I'll put all my podcast episodes into an article form, so you can also read them and come back to them and have the notes. But of course, you can write your own notes. You can do your own note taking. So what I wanted to say as well is, I'm sharing this from a place of the things that I've learned, what I've noticed working with practitioners myself, what I noticed working with clients, and what I noticed working with the people who come to me and ask for help and support. These are the things that I have learned along my journey, my personal experience, also on the journey of hearing other people's stories and their experiences. And so this is how I work when I have clients, when I have my one-on-one clients. I also have group programs. I understand the importance of you feeling safe in your body, and I understand that you need to move at your own pace. And I always lead from that place of compassion. I challenge my clients. We work with that concept of uncomfortable. But I genuinely want people to leave feeling better. A deeper relationship to themselves. They have more clarity, more understanding, more knowing. They know what they can do to take care of themselves. They've experienced the physical changes. They've started to implement the changes, the nutrition changes, the lifestyle changes. They feel better. They know that they can return to that whenever they need to. And part of the healing path to me is not just about getting the result of perfect health. That's, your body changes. Your body's in constant flux, right? You got to let go of that idea that there is such a thing as perfect health. There's going to be changes. There's going to be ups and downs. And so part of the work that I do is, yes, we work towards improving these challenges, because 100% things can improve. I believe that with my whole heart. But also, how can we find love, joy, fall in love with your life along that process, along the journey to getting there? That is what I really am rooted in with the work that I do. It's not just about getting to the end. It's about loving the pathway there, feeling supported along the pathway there. And so that when you leave that experience, you feel more like yourself. You feel like you've learned something. You feel gratitude for your experience, and you've felt held. And so with this as well, when I do one-on-one work, I have a 3-month program where we do a deep dive into health and healing. And that is why I work with an application process on that, because it is a collaboration. I mentioned this concept of collaboration. We work together. You need to show up for yourself when you on your healing journey. Self-responsibility. You need to show up. I have walked this path for a long time, and I've been through a lot of challenges with my health and moved through a lot of challenges with my health. And so I have a lot of knowledge. I've done a lot of research and study as well. I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to a lot of these things. But if that is not applied, it won't do anything. It's the same concept of you go to a physio. They give you exercises. You leave your appointment. You don't do the exercises. Nothing gets better, and you wonder why. Those exercises are there for a reason. It's the same with the one-on-one program that I have. Is you need to show up for yourself in between sessions. You need to show up for yourself and be committed to your healing path. Otherwise, no practitioner you see, not me, not anyone, will really truly be able to help you if you don't actually want to be there, if you don't actually want to show up. So I'm going to leave it there. I will, I'll pop the link to my offering, my one-on-one offering, in the show notes, in the description, that you can have a look at if it resonates with you. And yeah, like I mentioned, you can connect with me on Facebook, and I've got Instagram, Substack as well, where I'll have an article of this podcast. And you can ask me questions. You can share your feedback of what you learned, what you noticed from today's episode, and yeah, anything that came up for you. It's a big topic. There's layers to this topic, right? There's so many layers, and there's only so much that can be discussed. And how long have we been here? An hour. We've been here an hour. There's only so much that can be discussed. But I really, truly hope that some of these kind of step-by-step or bullet point ideas of what practitioner to choose and what you can actually do when you're feeling in the midst of feeling unheard and dismissed, and like you're in that in-between phase, I really hope that even this podcast can be really helpful for you moving forward and giving you some ideas of how to navigate that. That is my wish, that is my hope, and I'm just grateful to be here, sharing the wisdom that I've learned along my path of having lived through this, journeying this for many years. Yeah. Okay, that is it from me for today. Take care, everyone, and you'll hear from me soon enough.